Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. We'll start out by any additions to the agenda in front of you. Okay, moving on from that, can we get approval for the previous meeting minutes?
I will approve the previous meeting minutes.
Thank you very much. Do I get a second? Second, okay, thank you very much. I don't see any board members here. Tom, do you have any comments or?
The board approved the 25 budget. It included a number of additions that Rick really wanted to get in there to support our fishing habitat, fishing in general. I'm sure I could phrase that a little bit more eloquently, but he fought for additions, and those were included, and the board approved it. So very pleased with that. Other than that, happy holidays to everybody.
Good, I'm glad we got that approved. That sounds good. I'll turn it over to Rick now.
Okay, it's been a little bit since we've met, we have 2 months of Lake Ranger data to report, so very exciting. The month of October, 4,331. We had lots of good boating weather at that time. 96 non-members removed, 171 people contacted on the water by boat, and 57 boat hours. In November, as you would expect, we dropped off to 1,545 contacts, 78 removed, 12 were boat contacts, and 20 and a half hours on the water in November. The Lake Norwood drawdown continues. It's progressing very well. We've got about another foot or two to go, because once the lake went down, we noticed that the ramp could be extended. We've got a kind of a blowout at the end of that ramp where people have to rev their motors to get on a trailer. And since that lake periodically goes down due to drought anyway, we want to extend that. So we're going to go just a little bit further. But other than that, everything is progressing just fine. We should either at the end of December or into January begin doing the dredging at the back end of the lake that we've talked about. In grounds maintenance, we continue to remove some dead and downed trees on Loman in the water. There have been a few that we have just decided that we can't handle ourselves and would require professional service to take care of that. We've identified a way to get water into Lake Brittany from the golf course well, but we are waiting a part to get that going. We've been told that any day now that should be online.
So would that be pumping from the well?
Pumping from the well into the lake. We looked at it a little closer and feel like that. I was a little bit concerned that the lake was feeding the well, and so if you pump the well is a 2,000 foot deep well, and the water level is like at the 200 foot level. So I would assume the well would be full if the lake was indeed feeding it, and it's not. So I think there's some separation there, and it's something that had been done a long time ago.
So if memory serves me correct, again, it's probably been 12 years or so. The last time we did that, it seems like it introduced or caused kind of an algae bloom. And some kind of nasty water.
What time of the year was it? Do you
recall? Don't remember what time of the year they did it, but we did do it, and it was very sulfuric.
There is a sulfur smell that'll come with that. They experienced that at the golf course. They feed that pond on the golf course with the well, and then the pond feeds the golf course. I don't notice any algae blooms going on there. Whenever you change the chemistry of water, that is a possibility. but we're doing it in the winter, and it should be less of a chance of that.
So is this to alleviate low water conditions?
To alleviate the low water conditions that we've been experiencing and the concerns that we've had regarding that.
And so when is that gonna be open? When will you start pumping out of there?
We working with the golf course, they have identified the problem, a part that's needed, and that has been ordered, and we're waiting on that to come. I talked to Graham, the golf course maintenance director, earlier this week, and he said that they're still waiting on a call back from them.
So, anytime, whenever the part comes in, you'll start
anytime.
pumping, and is your goal to raise the lake by a couple of feet, or is there a goal, or just pump for?
I'll let,
Well, Rick is far more knowledgeable, but on this subject, but I think what's important is this is gonna help, but this isn't gonna be the cure-all.
true.
Because we can only pump so much water into our smallest lake. It's still a large lake.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna try and help as much as we can. And it's definitely a resource that we can tap into in the future, where we can move quicker in the future. But I don't want to give anybody the impression this is the cure-all. We need rain. That lake needs rain, and it's still, the problem is that the watershed for that lake is extremely narrow. So it's almost, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's almost like the rain has to fall on top of the lake to fill it up, because if you get too much for outside, it goes the opposite. It goes does not help to fill that lake. So,
and that weekend of good rain that we got, and then we got another one pretty close, that helped. But it came up 6 or 8 inches, something like that, and it's stalled again. So
And we haven't gotten any rain, so. Nothing
not
measurable.
other than that.
Nothing measurable anyway,
Yeah.
so, okay.
Yeah. So I'll continue. Let's see. We're planning some prescribed burns again this winter on the dams. When we get closer to doing that, I'll report, but we're doing that in conjunction with the city fire department, and we'll try to let residents know in the weekly update that the POA puts out. Let's see. We still have those 2 wet dredge operations to take care of, one at London Landing and one at Granton. The guys are really close to at least temporarily moving off of the gun range, and can get that done before we go back to the gun range.
Is that just to dredge out some of the
Just to
shallow
dredge
areas?
where the gravel has come in from the spring rains. Yeah. Let's see. Our Lakes Ecology and Fisheries staff have been busy. We stocked striped bass from our aquaculture ponds. We saved approximately $14,600 over purchasing them. We'll be stocking bluegill, channel catfish later this month, also fish that we produced. And then we're going to anticipate bringing in the threadfin shad in late March, early April, and we're going to go full bore on trying to grow some of those in addition to stocking those directly into Loch Lomond. Let's see, we did get rainbow trout stocked on November the 13th, 925 fish into Lake Brittany, and we had quite a few of what they call their brood fish. It's fish that they used to strip eggs from. They keep them an additional couple years, and some of those were approaching 4 pounds. So some really nice fish, and quite a large percentage of them were the golden rainbow trout. It's a different color variation. Can provide some excitement for people, but it also attracts bird predators. So we'll keep a lookout for that. Our fall fish sampling is complete. Nothing really too noteworthy to speak about with the electrofishing, but our trap nets did produce low numbers of red ear, but the ones we got were really, really big. So that's mixed there. We are going to start working on the construction of the Arkansas Cubes after we get back from Christmas break in January. We'll get those out early in the spring. We're setting up 4 tanks. This is from a repeat from last month to grow coontail and brittle naiad. Going to keep that in quarantine until spring, and then get that into the lake as well. Let's see, we talked about the threadfin shad. We had our event back in November, the coffee and cookies with the Lakes Ecology staff. I feel like that was a great success. We had, I think conservatively, we can say we had 50 people. It was an opportunity for us to kind of split up. Each one of my staff took a table, and we talked in greater depth about the things that we do. We had topics included fisheries management, aquaculture, water quality, grounds maintenance, and our lake use policy with Bob, our lake ranger, was there. Nobody threw coffee at anyone, so I think that was it was good. And we're able to take back some of those ideas and incorporate them into what we do too. So it wasn't just a one-way information there. And later this winter, we hope to sit down and do some fisheries management briefs and get those online, doing some short videos on what we do and that kind of thing. So that's all I have.
I have one question. In the last, I think you call it the outdoor update or sporting update, there was a recommendation on fish harvesting on bass. And we talked about trying to limit the number of red ear because we don't have enough red ear. But there was also a recommendation to harvest catfish. Are we in a position that we can harvest a lot of catfish?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of catfish available.
Okay.
And yes, they can be harvested to the limit of the law.
Okay.
So,
I hadn't heard that before. I just wanted to make sure we were clear
our
on
catfish are doing really well.
that. Okay, fantastic. Anybody else have questions for Rick on any topic that he covered a whole wide range of topics. I think he covered every agenda item that I had down in one
Was
fell
that
swoop.
any size catfish? Or is there limits?
There's no limits.
Okay.
Legally, there's no limits. I mean, it's whatever you feel like you can make a meal out of.
I have a quick question. Rick, what's the lifespan generally of the grass carp? I still see them down there. Should they be kind of peeling off here?
They can, in the summer, we lose a few. Some of the larger ones, for whatever reason, they'll die. They technically can live up to 20 years. I think most of those kind of fall out of the population long before that. But they're effective consumers of vegetation up to about 5-6 years, and then their feeding rates drop off tremendously. So we're continuing to catch as many as we can, but as time goes on, their feeding activity will slow anyway. But yeah.
How old are they?
The oldest ones are there are fish in there that have been here longer than I have, so back to the early 2000s, but the last time we stocked was approximately 4 years ago. So they're getting to that age where they're going to slow down.
Any other questions for Rick? Sandy, I see you're online. Do you have any comments or anything? I didn't want to not call on you.
I do not, but hello, everyone.
Okay. If nobody has any other questions, I'm going to go to the forum and have open forum. So, one of you guys want to say something or? Nope. No.
I have one question.
Sure. Just please state your name and.
It's Wade Hagan.
Okay.
And fishing around the lakes with the guys and stuff, this conversations come up a few times. And one, looking at the status of some of our launch ramps and our dam at the paving and the launching facilities and stuff. The question of funding for the lakes came up. So where do we go to look at, to see how the lakes are funded? Are they, the reason I asked that question is originally I'm from a state where the lakes were, all the money the lakes generated went into a general fund, and the general fund, actually all the money went to the golf courses because it was a general fund thing. It wasn't like a lakes fund where our money didn't go back to the lakes. And so that's a question I have, is just where do I find out who has what budgets and where it goes and what's kind of spent in a year. That was one of the biggest things that they talked about. So that was one of my questions.
Okay. We'll answer your question, hopefully.
Yeah, so what I'd encourage you to do is go onto the POA's website, go into the financial section, and you can see, if you watch the community budget presentation, which was in early November, you can see the entire budget presentation, which also includes lakes. With so that, and also we have financial reports available in the exact same section. And I can show you after the meeting where to find it on our website.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I can definitely help you with that. With regards to your question on where do your funds go and so forth, so keep in mind that the purpose of a POA is we collect assessments and we use that to subsidize a lot of the activities. And that's what our purpose is. So, you know, if we were, the example I give is if when people say, well, our golf courses should be profitable, okay, then we're gonna have to close 3 of them because that's how we would make it profitable. Otherwise, we subsidize. So with regards to lakes, if my memory serves me correctly, we subsidize, the POA subsidizes the lakes about $600,000 a year. Now that includes, as part of that, part of the revenue is your boat registrations and so forth. So without your boat registrations counting in, then it would be higher than 600,000. I don't know off the top of my head, but we are not taking your boat registration fees and using that to subsidize another amenity. You're getting a great return on your investment, if you want to call it that.
What kind of criteria, that makes perfect sense, but what kind of criteria is used to prioritize what project gets what?
So what we do is management comes to the 3 joint advisory committees, Lakes, Rec, Golf, and we come to them in early summer, and we ask for their input on projects. What projects are you proposing? What is most important? And we ask the committees to provide that back to the management team by the end of summer. So we give them 3 months. And some of the projects are larger projects, like several years ago we did the fishing dock at Loch Lomond. We did the other dock at Windsor 2 years ago, 3 years ago, so forth. So some of them are major projects like that. Some of them are smaller things, like the request to spend more money on the Arkansas Cubes, which is going to help us with growing vegetation. Also the shad. I gotta always look at him to make sure I say it correctly. And so forth, and make sure that we get the proper amount of funding. So as I referenced earlier in this meeting is Rick and John was there also, and Chris Fuller was there, and they have to go in front of the board and state their case or their justification, and they got everything they wanted, and I think that you got a little bit more. Or didn't we make a modification and the board gave you additional funding?
Not this year.
Not this year, sorry. 12 departments,
But
I
we
get confused.
appreciate the effort, Rick.
Yeah. But he got everything that he asked for. Now, he asked for more when he came to me, but I had to say no, some of that, you know, because we have 12 departments that everybody's looking for their piece of the pie. So it is a long process, and this year in particular, when the management team went to the three committees, we told the committees that this is a year we're going to spend less on capital because we've had several years in a row that were capital heavy. The gun range, the Tanya Creek driving range, BV65, the clubhouse at Kingsdale. So we've had several years where we've done a lot of really wonderful things, not necessarily lakes oriented things, but a lot of wonderful things. And so we said that we need to catch our breath in 25. And so our capital budget this year was $550,000, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not when you're as large as we are.
So, last question, about how many boats are registered in Bella Vista? I mean, how many?
Oh, boy.
So kayaks make up the large majority.
Say again?
Kayaks make up the large majority. I think we're up around 8,000 now.
8,000?
That number sounds correct. We had over 4,000 or 5,000
Not last
kayaks, and
Thursday.
then over 2,000 bass boats or bass pontoon boats,
not on there.
pleasure boats, so
Oh, okay.
it's probably in that 8,000 range if you count kayaks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Rick.
So also I might add, sir, if ever you, like next year when we do this process again, if you have a project that, if you see something out on the lakes that you'd like to see done, you can also contact one of the members of the committee or come to a meeting, and, you know, we're all ears if somebody has a project,
Rick
so.
can't show up anywhere, we'll get him. We'll attack
Now,
Rick.
it's not, now it's not
Everybody
burning,
knows
right?
that, so-
All right, thanks.
Should be dropped in, there it is.
I can actually get you, if you give me 1 minute, I can get you an accurate number on the number of boats. Now, it's gonna be everything, boats, kayaks, it's gonna be everything. But I can get you an accurate number.
How much revenue was collected from those registrations?
I might be able to get that, I'm not certain.
Previous staff meeting will have some of that.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at. Okay, boat registrations is 8,194 as of November 17th. And it brought in $244,000 in registrations.
Additionally, there is mooring fees on Lake Windsor that goes into my budget. Those are really the big ones. Some of the pavilion rentals will go into, but it's again a very small amount.
So in other words, when I said that the POA subsidizes it for about 600,000, that means that if we didn't have the boat registrations, that the POA would be subsidizing for 850,000 instead of 600,000.
My name is Wayne Doyle. I think most of my questions have been answered. I just want clarification. You said $600,000 approximately was allocated for projects last year?
No, it was allocated to fund our lakes
To fund the
department.
lakes.
So that includes lake rangers, that includes the shad.
Okay.
Did I say that right?
Yes.
And the Arkansas cubes, all that stuff. A lot of it is labor, you know, the lake rangers and
Grounds maintenance.
boats and fuel to keep the lake ranger boats going and everything, and supplies and everything. That's about 600,000.
Okay. And one other clarification, you may have answered it. Does any of the money that's collected from the boat registration fees fund other projects besides lake projects?
So if we're spending $850,000 and we're offsetting 250,000 of that, you're getting more than
Yeah.
the revenue.
So the answer.
But do we earmark every single dollar that comes in? No, it goes into a general fund.
Okay.
We don't say, well, these monies can only go here and these monies can only go here. Because remember, we're subsidizing.
Yeah.
So it's you're taking as opposed to giving.
Understood.
And I can actually get you the actual. If you give me, am I driving you crazy here?
If we were just relying on what the department makes, we would be hurting a lot more than we are. We're actually thankful that we're getting a subsidy from the POA assessment fees. So,
And
yeah, if we had to break even or something like that, we'd have to close lakes, which I don't know how you do, but hold on, almost there. It's handout. And all this information is available on the POA's website. I just have to find the link. Were you earlier or later in the presentation, Rick?
late. It was like, but it was like 2 o'clock.
Can I ask Rick a question while he's looking that up?
Sure.
On your fish stamp, I was reading the fish report, and I'm not sure I understood that. How did it come out when you did the shocking for fish like greater than 3 or 4 pounds?
Well, we didn't find that many of them, but on so you never have that many fish of that size. When you look at a ratio, we'll catch 200 or 300 in a sample sometimes, and there might be a dozen in the 3 to 4 pound range. And much of that depends on the specific night that you go out. Sometimes the big ones are inshore and sometimes they're not. We also do an aging of the fish every 3rd year. So each lake gets a sample taken for aging, and what we're looking for is growth. And what we see is that a lot of our fish stunt at around the 10 to 12 inch range. And so what we're trying to do is harvest more of the smaller fish so that those that are left have more to eat and can attain those larger sizes. We are in kind of a dip right now in quality fish. That's the idea behind getting the threadfin shad going and returning some of the vegetation that's missing, so our bluegill and bait fish can have places to hide until they can get some size to them.
when are the stockings, shad stockings?
Should be late March, early April.
March or April, okay. And how many will you be putting first time?
60,000, yeah.
60? Okay.
Yeah.
And then any future stocking after that hasn't been funded yet, I take it?
It won't have been funded. The fix is going to be with the return of the vegetation. We're on the northern extreme of where threadfin shad can survive. So in a really harsh winter, we'll get a die-off. Could kill off everything. Hopefully we'll get a couple good years and we can bridge that gap until we can get vegetation going. But that will help improve the largemouth bass quality.
And
quicker.
how is the vegetation going to be going other than the Arkansas cages? What's going to improve the great vegetation?
We need to remove grass carp. So you can actually catch them hook and line. You can go after them with a bow and arrow. That's a little bit risky, and we don't want to have a big tournament or anything like that where we have a bunch of boats out there at one time. But you can target them in the early spring. They'll be in shallow water where it warms up quicker. And so we're encouraging that. In fact, we're going to have it's kind of a bounty system, but not really. Starting in April, we're going to have kind of a raffle. You bring us a carcass, we'll give you a raffle ticket, and at the end of every month, we'll draw for $100. Okay. And so that's something that we're doing to encourage the harvest of those
All right,
fish.
thank you, appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
So, give us some more details on that. So is that just something that y'all are working on right now? Or?
Yes,
It's a good idea, actually.
yeah, we just think that it'll be a way to encourage people to actually go out and help us remove them. Because it's kind of it's a daunting task to go out and target those fish. They don't respond very well to our standard sampling techniques. We do get a few electrofishing, but they're nearly impossible to net. They want to jump when they get cornered, and then they're out of the capture area. So.
And where are they? What lakes predominantly? Just for
Loman is the one that we're really concentrating on. That is the lake that we 4 or 5 years ago we had an invasive plant show up, the parrot feather, and it was important that we get that taken care of, and it required us to go nuclear on vegetation. And now that it's gone, there's a seed bed in place of the native vegetation that should still be viable. And so if at some point when we remove enough of those fish, the native vegetation will come back with the help of these Arkansas cubes that will provide protective areas for it to get started. So,
Do you know how many were dropped in, roughly? Is there
grass carp was a couple thousand, and it was done over a couple years. So the first year we didn't see much decline at all in the vegetation, so we stocked more, knowing that it would take out everything. But the parrot feather was expanding its coverage so fast, and we didn't want that because all of our lakes are so close. It's really easy to drag that stuff from one lake to another on the trailer, on a boat trailer. So we wanted to really be proactive in getting rid of it, and we did. So.
Are we going to publicize in the BVPOA newsletter for the raffle?
When we get closer, probably
Okay. Yeah.
probably put something out in March, maybe February or March. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Rick or any other topics that we didn't already talk about? Anybody wants to cover? Go ahead, Joe.
The fly tires are doing structures for Norwood right now, making spider blocks and what's the other one? The pyramids for fish habitat. They're supposed to be done here, I think, this month. We turn them over to fisheries to drop them in once the lake is down far enough and they get everything done. But just want to bring that up.
Yeah. No, we appreciate that. I think we could use that kind of help on all the lakes.
Yeah, it's something that
With Norwood being as small as it is, we should really see a benefit there. And we're already doing that work at the back of the lake, clearing out some of that gravel and that kind of thing. And we intend to use some of the gravel to make some spawning beds, and that kind of thing. So.
Okay, anybody else before we wrap it up? Anybody online? Rob, you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, just checking. All right, if nobody has anything else, meeting is adjourned.